Hi. There are 4 people I'd like you to meet. There are 2 gay guys, there's a lesbian, and a transgender person. Their names are Jared, Chris, Laura, and Mairead. And they all have a couple of things in common. They all know the anxiety, the pressure, and the challenge of coming out in a small place like the hinterland of Queensland's Sunshine Coast. And they all want to give their advice, support and help to young people who are thinking of coming out sexually in a rural or a semi-rural environment. On your behalf, I'd like to thank them now for their time, but more importantly, I'd like to acknowledge and thank them for their courage in giving us the interviews that you're about to see on video. Jared, looking back on your own youth, it was growing up in a Queensland hinterland town. As a gay person, do you think it was easier or more difficult to have that happen in a small town?
It was difficult to grow up in a small town being a gay person, yes. Very difficult. Back in the day when I was in school, I did have a girlfriend until I realised that I was gay. I came out in my late teens in high school, and I kept that a big secret during school and towards the end of year 12 when I actually came out to a couple of friends who thought something was odd.
Odd in what way?
The way that I was acting, I wasn't myself.
When did you first realise that you might be gay?
I think I was about 16. I started having flings. Very interesting flings, to be quite honest.
Tell me how you broke the news to your family.
I broke the news to my relatives sitting down having a cup of coffee, and I just mentioned that I have a partner and I'm gay, and my world turned upside down when my relatives didn't accept it there and then on the spot. I left the house in tears, rang my partner. He raced around trying to find me. I ended up being in a real dangerous spot, sitting on the side of a bridge ready to jump.
What was going through your head?
Not having the support there when I needed it.
What did your friends think?
Now my friends think he's out of the closet, he's happy, he's got a partner, he's more enjoyable to be around.
You're happier now?
Yes, a lot happier.
There's going to be a lot of young people watching this video. Could you talk to them directly and tell them what your best advice is about coming out?
My best advice is when you're coming out, be comfortable with yourself. Time it right, because it is hard.
What would you say to parents who may suspect that their kids are gay?
Support your kids. Support how they are.
I'd like you to tell them, the young people, in some detail, if you will, what your advice is as to coming out.
My advice to coming out is be yourself, be strong, have a support person with you, whether or not it's a family friend, a loved one, or your own partner. Finally,
how did you feel when you told people and they didn't like it? They thought something was wrong.
When I came out and told my friends and family, there were a lot of friends that I had that didn't want to know me, wiped me from their life. After all the years that I had been friends with them, I'm no longer friends with those people.
Do you understand them or not?
I do in a way, but it's their loss. They've lost a good friend, and if that's how they want to be, then that's their choice.
Okay, thank you. Tell me about your life when you first thought you might be gay.
I don't know, I just always felt like I was a little bit different. I'd never had any remote interest in girls. It wasn't until my late teens I kind of realised, actually, it's just something I've always known, really.
Did you think where your future would lie?
I knew that it would probably be difficult, being society's attitude towards the LGBT community Case in point being the recent marriage equality thing, how all the clause came out and that, and like I made the mistake of reading comments on news articles on Facebook and just it was toxic, absolutely toxic. I was like, why the hell do I read them? I knew it was going to be difficult, but touch wood, I myself haven't experienced any difficulties.
Coming out as gay, I think, requires quite a lot of courage. Tell me about the situations that needed the most courage.
Just the initial coming out to begin with, just that first, telling the first one, like, which was in my case my dad. So that night that I was at work, I was totally freaking out because I had no idea how he was going to react. And in the end, when I told him, he was just sort of like, yeah. So I was just like, what? And then after that, it just made it a lot easier.
Could you tell young people how to find that courage, what the things to look for?
Try and find the right moment, do it in your own time, don't rush it, find the right words. If you need to tell a close friend first before you actually tell your own family, so that you have someone who can support you, then that's always a good thing to do. But ultimately, it's just finding the right time when you're ready to do it.
I guess that some of the people when you were younger that you either found out or you told, they would have had feelings of aggression and anger. Did you feel that?
No, I didn't feel any sort of animosity of any sort.
A lot of people might be worried about the attitude of people at work. How have you found the attitude of people at work?
They're fine with it. Like, it's who I am. I'm a very genuine, what you see is what you get person.
If a young person came to you and said that he or she thought that they might be gay, what would you say to them? How would you help them?
Basically, I just try and help them build up a little support network around themselves so that when they were ready to actually come out fully, then they would have that support network around them just to make them feel comfortable, and just basically give them advice that it's do it on your own time, on your own terms, how you feel is right, when you feel is right, and basically to who you feel is right.
Do you love your partner?
I'd be a complete liar if I said no. He's very important to me.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us.
No worries.
Tell me, when was the very first time in your life that you thought you might be gay?
It was when I was probably 18, 19. I definitely had finished school, but it was more when I was getting into adulthood that I start to develop feelings, I guess. I was thinking about my parents, my family. Growing up in Maleny, I just remember that there was so many people I knew that I knew it was going to be hard coming out.
How well do you think that your family took it when they eventually found out?
They were all super supportive.
How did that make you feel?
Ecstatic.
Maleny, of course, is a small town. There's lots of talking, lots of gossiping. How were you treated when the news first got out?
It was very, I could feel and I knew that I was being talked about. It was nerve-wracking in the beginning because I didn't know. And I was still discovering it for myself, so there was a lot of uncertainty as to how I was feeling.
How about your workplace? How do they deal with it there?
Oh, very supportive. Yeah, everyone at work was completely supportive. It was very nice.
You're now living with another woman.
Yep.
Can you tell me, and can you describe that relationship for me?
It's fantastic.
Have you ever had any regrets about coming out as gay?
Maybe that I didn't do it sooner.
Tell me, if a teenager came up to you and asked you for your advice about coming out and being gay, what is it that you say to them? What would you tell them?
To be honest with yourself, to not worry about what other people see you as or think of you as. I remember my biggest fear was telling my parents, but it's such an accomplishment when you finally do. It's like a massive weight has lifted.
I wonder if you could sum it up for me, just finally. What do you reckon are the pluses and the minuses of being gay in a small Queensland rural town?
For me, it was the small town feeling that everyone knew what was going on. Everyone knew that something was happening, that I wasn't with guys anymore, that I was with a woman, that everyone knew my business before I even knew my feelings myself. It doesn't matter whether it was work or home or at sport. I knew that everyone knew more about me than they needed to. Even though it can be such a supportive community and you can feel so close-knit, I think that it was so much harder because everyone knew so much more about you.
What about the pluses?
I found that people that I might not have actually told myself were coming up and saying, it's a very brave thing that you've done. It's very, very courageous of you. We completely support you. We completely agree with what you've done. Go for it. You follow your heart. Do what you have to do. Like, it was people that I didn't realise knew about it were actually really supportive of it and really like stepping forward to come and make sure that I was okay. Come and make sure that it was what I wanted. It was what I wanted to do. It was, it was really nice to be so supported.
If you're going to isolate one thing that's changed your life about this, what would it be?
That I've met someone so amazing. It was just, it was one of the, sorry. Was one of the hardest, but one of the most rewarding things I've ever done.
Looking back, when did you first think that you might want to change your gender? Can you tell me what was going through your mind at that time?
I'd gone through a period where I'd started a new job, and I felt like I was supposed to be in like the peak of my life. So I was fit. I'd started a new career that I believed held a lot of opportunities, and it just didn't feel like, it felt like there were pieces missing. So I hadn't had any exposure to transgender people up until an acquaintance of mine transitioned. And that was when I first knew that trans people existed outside of, the movies. So yeah, I saw that acquaintance transition, and I realised what it was to be transgender, and that there were certain physical transformations that were possible.
Do you think you gained from it, though?
Probably a sense of wholeness that I didn't have at that time.
And is that what you got?
Yes.
Tell me about the sense of wholeness.
It was just a feeling that my physical self matched my internal self.
It must have taken a lot of courage, a lot of determination, I think, to deal with those sort of issues and thoughts. Can you describe to me your state of mind at that time?
Prior to coming out, I was very anxious about the reaction of my family and my colleagues at work. I commenced my physical transition quite quickly after realising, so I only really had a 6-week period between realising I was transgender and coming out and starting that process. I was received quite well in all spheres of my life, so I didn't have to justify what I was doing to anybody.
How did the change of gender actually occur? I mean, what were the various stages that you went through?
I suppose it was never a matter of changing my gender. That was inherent. For me, it was about changing my secondary sex characteristics so that they better reflected my gender. So it basically involved commencing testosterone to deepen my voice and bring about the majority of the physical changes. And then I went through a range of gender-affirming surgeries.
How did your family deal with the gender change?
I think they dealt with it pretty well. took it in their stride. Dad didn't bat an eyelid. I think Mum needed to take some time to grieve over the loss of who she thought I was, but it was just a matter of giving her time and space to do that.
There will be young people watching you right now, I imagine, and they may have been thinking about changing their gender. From your own experience, what are the steep hills that they will have to climb, and what are the great joys that they may experience? What advice would you give them?
Probably that there's no wrong way to have a body or to have a relationship with your body or to have a sexuality. All gender identities and intersex variations and sexualities are valid. So I think it's a matter of staying true to who you are.
If you could give young people who might be watching you right now a piece of advice, and just in 1 or 2 sentences, to really help them and assist them during this difficult period,
I would encourage people to do what they need to do to feel whole and as though they're living authentically.
And finally, can you tell me why? I imagine you do feel glad that you've had a gender change, yes?
Yes.
And why?
It's just made me feel at peace to an extent that I don't think I could have experienced otherwise. The hormones and the gender affirming procedures were sort of a vehicle to this deeper calm.
Thank you very much. Good to talk to you.
No worries.
Okay, that's it. And just time to say thank you once again to Jared, Mairead, Laura and Chris. And thank you also you for watching this video. By the way, if you need any help or support, there's a phone number and a website address which should be on your screen now. See you then.